here. Geese on top of the bell tower. No, I wonder if they're nesting up there. Maybe that's where the baby's going, because they tore the nesting areas out of the pond. Never in my life. Now, she took a picture on my birthday, April 10th. The janitor here at the Stewart, she says, Kevin, come here. This is 7:30 in the morning. 4 of them up there. What a metaphor, right? What time is it? It was Chernobyl Day yesterday. So let's have graduation in the house that the nuclear industry built. Wattis Construction, Utah Construction, Utah Construction on Chernobyl Day. That's the house that the Utah Construction, when they merged with GE, that's the house that GE built, who built all of the nuclear industry on, I mean, and then caused the greatest logistics nightmare in the history of the city. You cannot make it up, right? Hold your camera steady. What time is it? 9:45, 9:45. What a metaphor here, Nuclear U. You should have seen the traffic jam in Ogden, the greatest traffic jam in the history of the city. Now, why would they have rain in the rain? 89 closed, and they're specialized in logistics at the School of Business. What? They caused the greatest logistics, and they're under investigation by the FBI. They went from first to worst. What a metaphor for those losers. Anybody that's associated with that school post 2003 or 4, don't go see the Dalai Lama. Remember that? The woman that used to teach, that took over. So Chris is retiring right here. I'm going to do an interview with her tomorrow. Monday. So right here, we talked about it at her retirement party. I made sure that everybody knew, and she knows. When 9/11 happened, I was teaching over there at the school, #1 school business in the country. I taught the derivative arbitrage class, which was the investment, how to buy puts and calls. That's what I taught. So I walk here. I've had open heart surgery in the spring and the fall. In the winter and the summer, I mall walk because I've had open heart surgery for the second time. Thank you, nuclear industry. Nuked my father to death in the Nevada test site. So Chris, who's retiring, she works the reference desk. She had just started in 2000. And so I'm teaching at I'm saving their MBA program because Dr. Cooley had, out of nowhere, got mad cow 2 weeks before the MBA had started. And so I'm teaching that class. We're the #1 school of business in the United States, bar none. Nothing's even close. We're public. We're beating Wharton. We're beating Harvard every single year. I'm the student professor. They're saving the MBA. Made a lot of promises to me, including insurance. Of course, I get cancer. They didn't pay for shit. Of course, because they wanted supply chain. Warren Buffett and crew come in and stole this school. Fair and Triangle. I fought him. Did they fly? They must have flew off. Are they still up there? So she's going to do an interview with me. So the FBI, when 9/11 happened, I'd been in New York. I just barely come back. Not Rex, his brother. So Baxter, who was Clyde Cooley's, I think they flew off. But anyway, let's walk over there while we're doing our walk. So we had a group of students in the towers when it happened. And so Baxter got him out. He was smart enough to get him out. Thank God. So I hurry and get up here. And I come up here I'm teaching up here then. Student professor, saving the MBA program we just recently had got. They're still up there. I just can't see them. I guess they're nesting up there. I can hear them. So Kyle Matson stepped in 2 weeks before the MBA started. Dr. Cooley gets a radical, crazy virus in his brain. The #1 finance professor in the country, bar none. No one's even close. And so whom the bell tolls. So anyway, there he is. There we go. They got that's something else. I cannot believe it. Might as well jump. Go ahead and jump. Oh, they can fly. I forgot. Unreal, right? So I hear him fly up here. I'm in panic when I saw it. I'm like, oh God, no. Oh God, no. I get into the water slab where I used to teach my class and run. Quite coolly agreed for me to come back and get the first MBA. And then Mike Vaughn and those guys agreed to let my boss talk to him, to Clyde and to Kyle Madsen. Kyle Madsen was in way over his head. He didn't have a clue. He didn't know what a derivative was, let alone he didn't know a put from a call. And so I walk in, where's Clyde? 2 weeks before it's ready to start, he gets some virus. And so, as you know, they were trying to switch to supply chain. Wow. Never in my life have I seen it. I've never believed it. So they're trying to switch to Chinese supply chain. These politicians, that was all started by Leavitt, Governor Leavitt, and then of course Huntsman tripled down on it. Oh, the ambassador who ended up in China and the ambassador to Fukushima, who I asked about Fukushima right there. Of course I know about Fukushima. Well, why aren't you screaming your head off? Wow. He says to me, so I'm quite cool to have none of it. We're the #1 school business in the country. We're public. We're, as Thompson used to say, Kev, we're going to become the Ivy League of public schools. I said, become? We already are. We're the #1 school business in the country now 10 years in a row. So we got the MBA. We didn't have an MBA. One guy got the MBA, Clyde Cooley. I says, I want that first MBA. So my boss has agreed to let me help out at Weber State. So I come back and he says, you can work, I'm one of the original work from home guys. He says, you can work from the lab. What a metaphor, right? They're nesting on top of the tower.
Oh, are they really?
Yeah, unbelievable, right? Well, they've had to transform. They tore out all their wetlands. Where are they supposed to breed? When you develop the Great Salt Lake into a mall. Fuck yeah, they're everywhere. That's the ignorant fucking mentality out here. He's probably a professor. Fucking moron. So, geese don't nest on top of buildings. They're ground nesters. Well, people don't know that. They're too fucking stupid. So, they're everywhere and their numbers are in absolute radical decline. So, anyway, these idiots, I can't handle them anymore. That's the degenerate state we live in. So we go from the #1 school business in the country. They want supply chain. I'm like, no, I'm fighting them. So Clyde Cooley, out of nowhere, what's the odds? 2 weeks before the MBA starts, his MBA, #1 MBA program in the country. I graduated in '96, the #1 undergraduate program in the history of the country. Testing to this day. To this day. Beaton Wharton, that's the Trump school. Elon Musk was at Wharton in those days. That was our sister school. We'd beaten Harvard, beaten Princeton, beaten Yale, beaten Wharton every year. We're top 5. We're #1 every year via the testing. The #1 testing in the history of the school or the country to this day was the class of '96. Mikado and his sister was in my graduating class. Yeah, they're the heir to the Japanese royal family. That's the type of people that flocked in here. So they're all lined up in here for Clyde Cooley's MBA program. I kept calling her. I'm like, Sandy. She's like, no, Kevin, there's nobody with the letter A has registered, so you'll be the first. So I go walk into class. I'm like, where's Clyde? Haven't you heard? There's a guy named Kyle Matz. I didn't even know who he was. I said, this is Clyde Cooley on the freaking syllabus. Yeah, don't you hear? Just 2 weeks ago, he got some attacked his brain right in class. And how do you go? By the way, a degree here is so pathetically worthless. So now, there it was really marquee to have it. We just call it the golden ticket, a letter of recommendation from Clyde Cooley. I have the last one. It's in there. I donated it to the school. So Chris retired yesterday, so back to 9/11. So Kyle's like, Kevin, you have to teach this. You have to help me. I can't do it. He didn't know a put from a call. This is #1 finance freaking MBA program in the country. I don't have an MBA. Well, we'll give you the first MBA. We'll make this promise to you. We'll do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. Fuck. My boss agreed to let me work out of the lab there. So I was a derivative arb guy. I hedged portfolios. I was good at it, really good at it. And so I taught the class, I taught the program, saved it. They made all kinds of promises to me, and they wanted supply chain. So Lee comes in here and some other ones, and I'm fighting with them and arguing, what are you doing? They're just desperate. They want this supply chain from China. Warren Buffett comes in and donates all these, because R.C. Willey's got sold by Bill Childs to Warren Buffett. And I said, don't take their money. Don't take. So I used to fly on Bill Childs' Learjet back to Omaha to the Berkshire Hathaway shareholder meeting. There'd be a picture right in there of me with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett with their armor. I had to play golf with them. Go ask Alma Harris. I had to take 4 showers when I got out. You know, we'd fly back there and go to their yellow party. They make a big deal. Yay, Buffett. You know, oh, God, I couldn't stand the freak who has since bought Utah Rocky Mountain Power, who owns the coal plants here, who's blocking all the sun. And his buddy Gates says, we're funneling money out of your bill here in Utah to fund his nuclear reactors you're going to build in Comoama that don't exist. This is how they've hijacked the state, but that was the plan. Now, Brad Wilson, who's running for Senate, was involved. So all these guys are running for Senate were involved in it. You know, a couple of them apologized, but, you know, they're the ones who did it. And so Clyde Cooley just out of nowhere dies? I mean, just dies. Boom. Well, what's the odds? I used to tell Lee, what'd you put in his tea? Joking. I don't joke about it anymore. Because the FBI, I used to see the SUVs in here last year when they were investigating. So the FBI takes the picture of Lee sitting right there. So Chris is going to do an interview with me. So I'm teaching the class, plumb full of Saudi kids in my class. So when 9/11 happens, I fly the hell up here. I'm like, oh my God, I just got back from New York. I'd go back and forth from New York. I run my plastering business, Blanchard Plastering, traded in New York, derivatives, worked from home a lot in my big house. You know, I was making a lot of money, had it going on, but I was always involved with the school. I agreed to teach it, so I was teaching it. And so as soon as I get up here, the FBI's already in there. You remember the Olympics are coming up. And so I'm like, the secretary's over there, Sandy's like, oh no, it's sealed up like a drum blade. I'm like, what the hell? So I heard and walk over here to the library, and they're all over in there, the FBI. Well, Chris is sitting at the table, so the FBI comes up to me. They want to talk to me, and they hand me a flyer, and they're like, do you know any of these guys on this flyer? And I'm like, yeah, I know a few of them. They're in my class. You know, they're students here. We're looking for them. So I'm like, call if you see them. We're looking for them. And this is within 2 hours of 9/11. So Chris is sitting at the desk. She's 8 months pregnant. She just ran there. She's from Philly. And so they hand her the flyer. So later that afternoon, I'm hanging around on campus. I mean, it's nuts. They're interviewing, the KSL interviews one of the Saudi students right there by this thing. And they said, what are you guys going to do? We're getting out of the country. Well, how are you going to get all the flights are grounded? Well, they already knew that flights weren't grounded. So there's a courtesy phone up instead. There was no cell phones in those days. I mean, you think about the irony of it was the Palm 3Com that capitulated the market in 2000. You know, Utah, Palm, US Robotics, Novell, WordPerfect, all Utah, all here. #1 school business in the country. So I'm over there and perfect 10. I can't overstate this. Geese are ground nesters. Geese have always been ground nesters. They're forced out. When you build a mall, Farmington Station, in the wetland, I grew up on this Great Salt Lake. They destroyed it. Growth for the sake of growth, the ideology of cancer cells. So, perfect 10, Blanche. So, I'm in there and she says, they're right here. She says, come here. She says, I just called the FBI. So there's a courtesy phone. They were just lined up on the courtesy phone, the Saudi kids calling people. There was no cell phones. And so she says, I just called. She says, 3 of them just walked through. I'm like, oh, God. I didn't have no YouTube camera. I'm standing right there. The FBI's in there within minutes of her phone call. They arrest 3 of them right there. They got them in handcuffs. They perk walked them right out of there. I witnessed it. So did she. She still has her FBI bug. We talked about it yesterday. She said she can do an interview with because their last day is Monday. You know. So, what a metaphor, right? Perfect 10. So, I'm going to tell this story. So, I think the irony yesterday, the greatest traffic jam in the history of the city was yesterday. And they have graduation because the nuclear industry who's built this up in the Wattis, in the house that they built in the D, which that was built by the nuclear industry. They become gazillionaires. So, I mean, I've been here my whole life. I've been here since 1968. And so, remember when there used to be intellectuals walking all over this campus? And campuses, oh yeah, they were everywhere. This was their place. What happened to them? They got rid of them. So, Lee does that interview. He's sitting on the bench right there. You see him with his hands like that. I'll post the link. So, Clyde's office is right there, Kyle. So I'm teaching in the corner thing. And so I get up here. They arrest him, and they're in my class. So Kyle Madsen, for all those years, and Kyle got cancer in 2005 right here and died. So does his wife. He used to teach at the University of Syracuse. We'd always talk about the radioactive there. Me and him would have lots of conversations. You know, I would fly in the Learjet with Bill Childs back there too, the Berkshire Hathaway, and we would have it out about the supply chain. And so they teach logistics here. They went from first to worst this century. So I resigned in 2004 because they owed me so much. They just let the fight was on, and I lost. They got it. They turned us from the #1 school business into logistics, supply chain from China. Now you can look it up. One of the professors right there forbid Utah legislators, because she's on the economic council for the state, to go see the Dalai Lama and students. Made international headlines. So he's sitting right here, Lee, in that photo. So the FBI does an internal investigation about Chinese influence. I can't believe they didn't arrest him. And says, unlikely suspect, Utah. Points to one place, the Weber State Wattis School of Business, from first to worst. You cannot make it up. So they teach logistics here. So logistics here yesterday, this is their specialty, logistics. Okay, as they've gutted any integrity. The #1 school with Clyde Cooley just out of nowhere dies. So did Kyle Madsen. Kyle Madsen's lying for years. Blanche, because I'm the first guy that identified one of them, that they bought puts on the airline stocks. I taught that class at the #1 school business in the country. That's unarguable document. And they blackballed the shit out of me. What they did, they never did give me the first MBA thing, which they ripped me off. They ripped me off millions of dollars. They could have paid for they promised me insurance. They promised everything. I got leukemia, as you know. You know, Mike Lee kicks me off Medicaid. I fork over $1 million worth of Tesla stock. Play back the tape, Your Honor. You know, I was a self-made millionaire more than once. Remember I had you buying all that Tesla stock in 2011? Oh, they just turned out the lights. Out of order? Oh, is it out of fucking order? Oops. How do you go from first to worst? So they specialize in logistics. So the greatest logistics nightmare in the history of this city happened yesterday. Graduation at Weber State on Chernobyl Day in the house that the nuclear industry built. Now, I'm like, you got to move that. You can't do that. 89 closed, didn't advertise to anyone. And, I mean, the greatest, Washington Boulevard, it took 2.5 hours to go 3 or 4 blocks yesterday. So I'm sure lots of people flew into Salt Lake. My grandsons flew in last night from New York, and I couldn't go get them. Like, get on the train. They had to wait it out. The logistics nightmare. I wonder how many people missed graduation. And they had rain from the office. I mean, that's what that is, the office. I mean, we go from the number one school business, so it's important that I get this. And I'm posting it because it's a historic day, you know. The greatest logistics nightmare in the history of this city was caused by these guys. Yeah, EO was the CEO of General Electric. CEO, he's from here, by the way. My grandkids are related to him. I'm not. But how can that be? Well, they have a grandmother, you know. So, the Wattis curses, I call it. How do you go from first to worst? Just like this guy. Well, them Canadian geese are everywhere. No, they're not. I mean, this is the mentality of these psychos here. Go kill them all. Well, they hunt them pretty well year-round. Well, when you've taken their nesting grounds. So I was part of the committee. I was part of the group on Legacy when we negotiated Legacy Highway. And the deal was Legacy was through a wetland, through a marsh. My grandkids were playing soccer right behind the Davis County Jail out there a couple days ago. And I told my grandsons, now you remember I told you this. In 1983-84, right where we're standing on this soccer field, where the mall is, Farmington Station was 10 feet underwater all through the 80s. It'll happen again. I'll be dead and gone. But you remember your grandpa told you that because these psychos built. So how did they build Farmington Station? In a wetland, nothing west of Legacy. The legislature went in and changed what west is. Same thing. Don't go see the Dalai Lama. I want you to think about that. She said it. I'll post the links from first to worst. And they caused the greatest logistics. Why would you have Dylan Jones speak at graduation? The Arthur Ashe winner. The NBA first rounder. Why wouldn't you have TJ, Teron Johnson, the highest paid nickelback in the history of the NFL? Why wouldn't you have, you know, one of these marquee? They have Rain from The Office, and they teach logistics. They specialize in it, and they rank last. They went from first to worst. How's that? Well, that's the basketball team. That's the football team. You can't win with Damian Lillard. You can't win with Dylan Jones. They couldn't win with Michael Jordan, these coaches around here, because this play, you heard that guy. Oh, these are Canadian. I cannot overstate it. Canadian geese are ground nesters. They tore out their nesting spot over there that was built just for that this year and turned it into a spent fuel pool. So I wanted to get this. I'm glad I got it. So from first to worst, how is that even possible? They teach logistics here, and they cause the greatest logistics nightmare in history. I graduated here in '96, the second time. I was the student professor here. What they did to me, I told Brad the other day, well, you owe me that first MBA. You owe me a lot of money. You know, I'll just make a movie about it. You know, everybody knows that I was right. I'm the guy that fought it and fought it and fought it and fought it. You know, protecting Clyde Cooley's what he wanted, what he created. They took what Clyde Cooley created and just ripped it to fucking shreds. Don't go see the Dalai Lama. Under investigation from the FBI. Well, that's the Nuclear Energy Crime Syndicate, huh? Clyde Cooley. Kevin, you keep attacking and going after the Nuclear Energy Crime Syndicate, they're gonna go after you so viciously like a wolf. Yeah, I know, I don't give a fuck. You know? I mean, I made a lot of money in those days, and Chris can do an interview, but she's the one that called. She still has her FBI button. I said, well, you know, 'cause she's going back to Philly. She says, well, you should donate that to special collection. I made sure I told that in front of the story because the curator of the library and all the people, they don't know that story because they're all new. They haven't been there long enough. How could they know? Who's going to tell? So I just told it. That's what we do. There we go. There we go. I'm glad I kept it. 10-10. I cannot overstate this. Canadian geese. Never. I've been here since 1968. as any, you know, the first photo I ever saw was her, the janitor, at the Stewart Library, the infamous Stewart Library, the famous, the infamous, where Melvin Dumar forged Howard Hughes' will in there, where Mark Hoffman did so much of his work, where Edward Abbey did so much of his work in that, where Kevin Blanch has done all his work. I mean, the history of that library is incredible. Well, I just told some really great history, you know, so I'll get an interview with her before she leaves on Monday. So I knew David O'Kinney personally. He's a great guy, fantastic guy. Where's the statue of Fawn McKay Brody? Huh? Where's the statue of Fawn McKay Brody in front of the Weber State Library? What? She went to Weber State? Yeah, somebody told me that here on the air. No, an English professor told me, no, Fawn did. Oh, oh my God, I've been here all those years, Kevin, and I didn't know. Yeah, she taught here. She graduated here at 16 years old, Weber State, downtown Ogden. She was a professor here, the first dean of history in the history of the country. Where's the statue over in front of the Wattis Library? There should be. You know, so maybe put a statue of Lee as he does that picture right here. Maybe you get a statue of Warren Buffett here, the guy who gutted this school, who owns the coal plants in southern Utah, who owns Rocky Mountain Power. What a scumbag. 93 still chasing money. So I cannot overstate this. Geese are ground nesters. They're evolving. They have to, because they drained off their wetlands to build moths. West isn't even West here anymore. These psychos. Go ask Brad Wilson, you know, and at least he apologized. He says, I was wrong about this whole thing, Utah, and what they did. God, you hate to turn it off. You're watching. It's so iconic. Geese nesting on the bell tower at Weber State. Stay in tune.